Hey guys, welcome to my pre-production drive on this BMW XM. We were teased about the XM concept at the back end of last year, and I'm out here today in beautiful sunny Austria to get behind the wheel of this pre-production car. We're not going to talk about what it looks like or go into too much detail on the exterior because this isn't a finished car. You've seen the pictures of the XM concept, which I'm personally not the biggest fan of. And I've heard that that's not going to change too much for the production car. We can't judge this particular car on the way it looks because it's just not a finished product. And as I just said, it's all about the drive and what it feels like from behind the wheel. This is going to be the first exclusive M model since the M1 back in the late 70s. I believe the M1 went into production in 1978, so that makes it a year older than me. And what I mean by that is, well, you won't see a trickled down XM in the regular BMW lineup. So you're not going to get like a 40i variant. You're only going to get this full fat XM. Whether they make one above this particular model, time will tell, because this car consists of a 4.4 litre V8 twin turbo. It's not the same unit that's in the current F90 M5 or X5M and X6M. It's actually an updated engine. And it has a hybrid system, so it has essentially batteries running a motor. Again, we don't know too much about them, but we do know that the combined output is 650 horsepower and 800 newton meters of torque. And I know when the XM concept came out at the end of last year, they were teasing us about 800 horsepower, and I think it was 1,000 newton meters of torque. So in my head, there's a possibility that we will get a more hardcore version of this down the track. Not that we need it, because I'm sure this is going to be powerful and fast enough in its current state. In terms of running gear, well, it has the MX drive system, so four-wheel drive. You've got four-wheel drive sport as well, so it sends more power and torque to the rear axle, but you don't have rear-wheel drive only, but you don't get that in cars like the X5M or the X6M. It has the familiar ZF 8-speed gearbox, but that is integrated with the hybrid system. So it's all very complicated and complex, and I don't know and haven't been given enough information to talk about exactly how it all works, but hopefully we're going to find out on the drive and see what it's like, see how that all comes together, because in my experience some hybrids are a nightmare in the sense that, yeah, when it chops between combustion engine and electrical energy and when it all comes together. But other cars like the X5 45e really does that very well, and this is a performance model, so you've basically got that hybrid electric power to torque fill. So when the V8 is down low in the revs and it needs that extra torque, I'm hoping that we'll feel that when we're on the road. In terms of size, well, it's slightly longer than an X5, but it's slightly shorter than an X7, and in camo at least it doesn't look that big. I was expecting it to look a lot larger. Those pictures of the XM concept last year, well, it looked massive, and I'm kind of glad that it doesn't look too big, and it looks like it sits quite low, so therefore driving dynamics, etc. should be good. All the batteries and hybrid stuff are hopefully going to be nice and low, keeping the center of gravity down, and therefore hopefully injecting some of that BMW M DNA. It's not just going to be an exclusive M model, it's also going to be the first M car with a hybrid system or a hybrid running gear. And I assume, and I couldn't get this answer out of the guys and girls down here at BMW M, but I assume that this running gear is what we're going to see in the new M5. Before I talk for too long and get sunburnt, it's beautiful out here, I can't tell you. Let's jump in behind the wheel and take it out on one of these amazing Austrian roads. You join me about 20 minutes later, and I've been experiencing many of the modes in this XM, and there's lots of modes, there's lots of configurations, and in fact the setup menu itself, well, there's a couple of extra bits on there which we'll talk about soon. Next to me, I'm really delighted to have Sven. Sven, do you mind introducing yourself and telling my channel who you are and what you're responsible for?
First of all, Joe, thanks to having you here. And as you said, my name is Sven Ritter. I'm the head of project of the BMW XM, head of the whole program. So therefore, we are really happy to have you here and can at least talk about the drivetrain and the driving dynamics and the drive chassis with you today, and have a good day.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a real pleasure having you, the main man, sitting next to me. My first 20 minutes, I'm just blown away by so many things with this car. Once again, it defies physics, just like the X5M or X6M. But something that I've noticed immediately is it doesn't just have sort of the M DNA and those driving dynamics that you would expect in something like an X5M or an X6M. It also has the comfort side of things, and depending on which mode you're in, you can knock it into full electric. In fact, it has a full electric range of 80 kilometers. So when you're going through towns, or in fact now, my M1 button, I've engaged that, and we're following a cyclist at sort of 20k an hour in full electric. And it's a really nice feature or function to have in any hybrid, but especially this. It's a real Jekyll and Hyde car. But before we talk more about the driving dynamics, and while we're stuck behind this cyclist, can we talk maybe a little bit about the interior? You told me some interesting things when we first jumped in, especially about the rear part of the cabin.
Yeah, I mean, so we talking only driving dynamics and engine today. What we can say is in the rear seat, the expectation was to have a different level of comfort. So we call it the M lounge. Yeah, so we have spaciness, we have softer seats, we have roominess, and all luxury materials we have at BMW M.
Yep.
And the front row is a bit different. It's the M, that's the driver's seat, where you have fun, where you are active and you're not just sitting around and enjoying the ride, but have fun during driving.
Yes.
That's the idea. So we have a front row M car, proper M performance, M position, seats are lowered, and so on and so on. On the rear seat we have this luxury M lounge feeling.
Sure.
Yeah? And we made everything to everybody notes the difference, that compared to other luxury cars,
yep,
it's even more luxury here.
I haven't sat in the back yet, but I will do that once we get back briefly. But just looking at those seats, they look really comfortable. And as you talked about, the driving position here, well, I drove an M5 CS down to you guys this morning, and it feels exactly the same as an M5 CS, which feels exactly the same as my G80, and I was going to say my M2, but my M2's driving position is not that great because you sit quite high, so the newer ones are a lot better. But in terms of driving position, for me and my lanky 6'4" frame, I feel at home. I feel, yeah, this is an M car. It feels really good. Obviously the car is big. We talked about its sort of dimensions on the outside. It sits somewhere between the sort of X5 and X7 in terms of length. But when you're behind the wheel, remember, I'm in a left-hand drive car, and when I come over here for a small amount of time, like one day, it sometimes takes a while to get used to driving a left-hand drive car, especially if it's a big car. But actually, because you're sitting quite high, I know where the corners of the car are really quickly and really easily. In fact, quicker than when I borrowed that M4 at the end of last year. So in terms of how it feels behind the driving seat, it doesn't feel as big as it looks on the outside in terms of dimensions. And when we talk about the driving dynamics itself, well, it's mind-blowing how much stuff is going on under the skin. And I felt it in the first 100 meters or something. You could feel stuff going on underneath you, not in like a disconcerting way, not in like a robotized way, but you could just feel the car making adjustments all the time. We've got rear wheel steering as well, which is super cool, and that's not on the X5M or X6M.
No.
So
you have the 40-volt 8 anti-roll system.
Right, okay, so it's all to do with that, with the 48 volt and yeah, system that's in here, and that's constantly working.
Exactly.
Do you want to tell us a bit about the setup menu that we've got down here, and what's new on here for this particular car?
Yeah, I mean, the setup menu is well known from any other M car. Yeah, this is in every M car but we do have additional settings. For instance, the energy recovery in 2 different levels, a kind of recuperation, how to recharge your battery for the PF drive. You can adjust, and also, for instance, the chassis buttons, they adjust more than they do in a regular M car and another M car, because we do have, as we just said, the 48-volt anti-roll system.
Sure. We
do have the rear axis steering.
Yep.
And that's something which you also can adjust with Comfort Sport and Sport Plus.
Okay, so that all adapts depending on which mode you're in.
It does. Yeah. That was kind of the application work we do to make it, to fit it to every need on every kind of road, and from parking to the Autobahn. It has to serve everything. Yeah.
Because this car has literally got to tick so many boxes, hasn't it? It's got to do. We talked a lot off camera earlier on. It's kind of the car for the person that can afford it anyway. It's the car that's going to literally do everything. And in terms of options and stuff, obviously none of this has been released. I can't really talk too much about it, but it's going to be a very limited, it's going to come, you know, top level spec out of the box. You know, you're not going to be able to tick too many boxes, but the sort of person that can afford one of these is going to want everything that's in here anyway. So we've got, you know, head up, we've got all the normal things, beautiful Alcantara headlining. It's a very nice place to sit, and it's a very nice place to be. In terms of the actual dash layout and stuff, a lot of it is covered up, but obviously I can see we've got the new curved display that we've seen in cars like the i4 and the iX. So obviously the dashboard itself, if you like, is very adjustable, and it has lots of really cool features, like you can see when you're using e-power only or e-power and combustion engine, essentially it's got two rev counters that go together in well, not in unison. If you're in electric mode, you'll see the blue go up, and if you're regenning, then it goes down. It's actually really cool, and it's the first time that a full digital dash in my head really makes sense, because I don't know, in my M3 I still want analog dials because I'm pretty old school and I like that, and there's no massive need to have full digital in my head. But in this car there's so much stuff going on, so many settings, that you do need the sort of digital dash. In terms of extra settings here, so we've got energy recovery, we can have that on minimum and maximum. That's basically regeneration.
Yes.
So when you come off,
recharging of the battery.
Recharging the battery, yeah. And then in the MX drive, we've got four-wheel drive sport, no rear-wheel drive. You don't have rear-wheel drive in the X5 or X6M either, and you're not really going to need it in this, although it would be fun to light up the rear tires.
You still can drift,
yeah.
So the car has enough power to drift for all four wheels.
Okay.
So all four wheels can smoke.
Wow.
If you are able to do it, the car can do it, yes.
That's impressive. And there's a four-wheel drive sand mode down there, which we're not going to try today, but I'm assuming that's like an off-road.
That's
yeah, a dune mode, yeah.
Dune and sand.
For the Middle East and stuff,
exactly.
Which is obviously one of the big markets that this car's aimed at.
And as you said, the 2WD doesn't make any sense for such a big car.
No.
And therefore the 4WD Sun could be a mode which customers can enjoy if when they go to the kind of desert thing, wherever that is.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a bit of open road ahead of us. I mean, in terms of pace, we obviously don't know performance figures, but we do know it has 650 odd horsepower, and more importantly, really, the 800 Newton meters of torque. And again, we talked about this off camera earlier on, but it's that torque feel that really helps with this car, because I'm assuming, we don't know weights, I'm assuming it's heavier than the X5M because it's larger, it's more luxurious, ticks a lot more boxes, but actually in reality it feels faster more of the time because you've got that instant torque feel. So I'm in third gear here, I should be in second, but if I put my foot down, I mean, it pulls like a train out there. That was third gear, and I could feel the wheels scrabbling for grip.
They do.
Third gear at like 20k an hour. I mean, that's a perfect example of why and how a hybrid sort of running gear or running drivetrain can really help, especially with bigger and heavier cars or real high-end performance cars like the SF90 Ferrari and stuff. But just unreal. I wasn't expecting that, actually.
You're welcome.
I thought, oh come on, you got to show me something on the camera, and it just pulled out there like nothing else. While we're going down here, we can talk about the brakes. I mean, the brakes are mighty, really good. The body control is really impressive. This is a steep hill. I'm on the brakes, turning in there. It's keeping it all
horizontal. It's always horizontal, no lean, nearly no lean when you are in sport.
Yes, but I think more importantly, you know, the earlier systems of that, going back 5-6 years,
they run natural.
Exactly, yeah, and they almost sometimes made you feel a bit funny, especially as a passenger.
Synthetic kind of.
Exactly, synthetic. And I think that's what's, you know, that's what's different about this is you can't get your head around. If you've never driven a car that stays flat, keeps it stable, it always takes a while to get your head around. But this feels just amazing. It feels like, yeah. It's
now good enough for an M car, so that's why we chosen it.
Of course, yeah, really, really impressive. Yes, it's not my car or my cup of tea in terms of, I wouldn't see myself buying one of these ever, but that's because I like smaller, sportier M cars. And I must admit, when I first saw the XM concept pictures and stuff, in terms of looks, well, we'll wait until we see a finished production model, and we'll wait until we see them on the road, because as we know, with so many modern BMWs or BMW M cars of recent years, once you start seeing them on the road, if you didn't like it from day one, they sometimes grow on you. But if we don't talk about looks, because we can't really judge it because it's covered in camo and this is a sort of pre-production car, if I'm talking about driving dynamics and how it feels, does it feel like an M car? Yes. Does it feel comfortable when you knock the motor back? Yes. And does it have an amazing sort of electric only range and feature? Yes. So it's remarkable how much you've managed to squeeze out of one car.
Exactly.
It's like, it is.
That is exactly the challenge, yeah. Have both luxury, driving agility, and this all in one car. That was the challenge, and I think so far, not too bad.
Yeah, but with a hybrid system as well, but you've actually made it, it's actually benefited the car, the hybrid system, as opposed to just adding extra weight, you know?
Yes, exactly.
It's not...
It's part of the M fun.
It's part of the M fun, yeah. No, very, very impressed, man. I'm, yeah, hats off.
Thank you.
Hats off to you. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, I can't wait to drive a finished one in the UK. The production on these are going to start when and where are they actually being produced?
The start of production will be December this year.
Okay.
And it will be in Spartanburg, where we have all other large X models.
Oh, in the US, yeah.
In the US, yeah.
Cool.
South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that makes sense as well, because it's one of your biggest markets. The biggest market.
It is the biggest market for the XM, obviously.
Yep.
Followed by China, and then followed by Middle East.
Yes.
And then the other markets with much lower numbers. So biggest markets are really the US and China and Middle East.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on board. So thanks so much. Lovely to meet you. And yeah, I'm hoping that you guys and girls found that really insightful. It's been a very quick learning curve for me today, because we don't learn anything about these cars until we get here, because it's so early in the development sort of stage almost. So we learned a lot in a briefing this morning, and it was massively helpful having you next to me, talking me through everything in this car. So
it was fun for me too. Thank you very much for having you here.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure, man. Absolute pleasure. Yeah, I think if you're that Urus customer or that G63 customer, whatever, yeah, I strongly suggest having a look at one of these, taking one out for a drive, and seeing what they're all about, and then decide. Yeah, let the driving do the talking. So yeah, right, I'm gonna switch the cameras off. Thanks a lot for watching, as always, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this one. It's been a very exciting day for me, because you know, I very rarely get to come on something that's so unique and so early as this drive. So it's been awesome. So thanks for watching. I will see you at another video very, very soon. Cheers.